Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_dadeo. So today we're going to try to get caught up on some, I guess, news and notes stuff. We're going to go through Brian Gutekunst's press conference. We'll start with that. We'll kind of see where that takes us. It's a 31-minute press conference. So I will try to, with what he says plus commentary, I don't want it to take all day. So we'll see where that leaves us, but I want to try to go through, I guess we're just playing cleanup, man. We from where you're at, the draft is freaking tomorrow. I still got a couple days here, but so far from where I'm sitting, no real earth-shattering news, but I want to try to, like I said, get us a little bit caught up on some of the things that are going out there, and that'll be about that. So, with that said, and maybe to kind of speed up time, maybe I won't play what Gutekunst had to say. We'll just kind of go through it. I got the whole Q&A laid out here. But a couple points that I wanted to touch on. Again, the question has continually been asked, has Mark Murphy told you that you cannot trade the pick? And he said no. Technically, he said not yet. There's still time, but he was joking. There's a couple narrative-busting things that I'm looking forward to getting to. We've already done this one, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. But, I don't know, man. I think sometimes, and I'm sure we all do this for certain things, we look at something that makes sense, and then we just kind of assume some kind of nefarious intent, and we just run with it. So, it makes sense that Mark Murphy would want this event to go very well, and ideally, that would mean the Packers make some kind of a pick in the first round. In fact, ideally, that would be like a trade up for a major player or some kind of a big trade or some kind of a big thing. That would obviously be cool and ideal. But to then kind of take a jump to, because it makes sense, it must be happening. And then when people say, I don't think so, or when Mark Murphy explicitly says no, and Brian Gutekunst explicitly says no, then we have people out there saying, oh, yeah, sure, like I'm going to believe you. Because we've gotten so far down the rabbit hole of, because it kind of makes sense, it must happen. And even if somebody tells me, even if it comes directly from the source that is not what's happening, I choose not to believe it. It's such a crazy thing to me. Forget about coming from the standpoint of trying to make the case for why the Packers wouldn't do it. I don't even need to make that case. You have to explain to me how what you're doing in your mind makes sense. You sell me on this crazy conspiracy theory. Well, they want it to be a good... Yeah, so what? That's not enough. I'm sorry, that's not enough. It's not enough evidence. And by the way, the funny thing about it is a lot of people come at it from a standpoint of seemingly believing that this is a bad thing. Let me ask you, if you were Mark Murphy or Brian Gutekunst, let's just say if you were Mark Murphy, would you do it? And if not, why not? Because apparently you've come to the assumption that because it makes sense, it must happen. The only way that it actually works out where you wouldn't do it, but you know that he would do it, is number one, you're superhuman, and that any human being other than yourself would clearly fall into this trap, but you're a superhuman moral person. Or you have some kind of deep insight that Mark Murphy is actually some evil, nefarious figure. And so while the rest of us normal people would make a rational and moral decision, he doesn't have that capability. Where is any of this? What are we talking about here? Why are we doing this? And it's annoying because I see it all over the place. Maybe I'm on social media too much, but the amount of just random conspiracy theories because, oh, come on. Think about it, man. This would benefit this. So what? Yeah, it would benefit me financially to rob a bank, right? Guess what? No intention of doing that. It would financially benefit me to be one of those like people that tries to scam old people out of their, like go get me a bunch of gift cards and Western Union me some money or something. I don't exactly know how it works, but like I clearly that would make sense. It would financially benefit me and my family, so why wouldn't I do it? Do you understand how stupid this is? Mark Murphy would be upset if the Packers traded out of the first round because it would be a disappointment. Yeah. But what if it's like what's best for the team? Do you think the guy that has dedicated his life to the Green Bay Packers and hired a GM to do what's best to build the team, to bring a championship to Green Bay, is there any chance that he puts that ahead of this freaking event? Or do you just have that low of an opinion of a person that you know nothing about? So weird to me. And this is going to come up again on another subject, which we'll do this song and dance again, but I would love for anybody to explain that rationale to me. Hey, this kind of thing makes sense. Are you doing that? No, I'm not. Hey, Gutekunst, he said no, but I think he's a frickin' liar. Has he told you you're not allowed to do this? No. Well, guess what? Now I think you're both lying. God. Oh, okay. All right. Fine. I don't know how you come to your... I mean, just the... I don't know. I'm trying to understand how people think and how people come to conclusions and how they form opinions. And it's weird. It's like we have the internet. This is why I just think education is the biggest scam in the history of the world. We're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for information that's free online. It's all free. Every bit of information you can get at the most prestigious universe about the most complex topics are all free online. All of them. Well, I don't know how to learn it. What do you mean? I mean, you don't know how to learn it. What does that even mean? Ask somebody. I don't know what to tell. Like, what? We have all this information. It's free. It's right there. And you can have AI help guide you. Where can I find this? What does this mean? I do that all the time. Like, I've been going through the freaking, like, older documents and stuff. And it's great because AI can make it, like, common English. Because I'm over here trying to read the Federalist Papers, and I'm like, I don't know what that word means. And they're like, yeah, here's in stupid terms so you can understand it. Like, oh, that's all. Okay, that makes sense. I get it. But it's like when there's a question, there's ways of going and finding answers. And I'm also just curious about how you come to your questions. Like, where is this random question of, are you trying to nefariously tank your own team for the sake of a spectacle? That's how you spend your days, coming up with that kind of stuff? Okay, how do you come to your conclusions? I just did. I asked the question and then I concluded it was true. What? I just made something up and then I said it was true. That's it. That's the whole thing. I don't understand it. Anyways, he was asked the question about how do you balance between traits and production? He says, we focus on projecting NFL performance, examining why college production was low, then judging if traits indicate future growth. I mean, it's kind of it's a little bit of a nothing answer, but not really. Essentially, he answered that we do things the right way. Because, of course, that's how you're supposed to do it. The question is, are you good at doing that? Because, again, we oversimplify things, and then we call them stupid, even though we're just, the way we think about things is so unbelievably shallow. The bottom line is every single person is a projection. There are elite, dominant college players that are going to go in the 6th round and bust out. Why? Because the professional football league is not the same as college football. It's very different. Some people just don't have, like, there are, this is where I have a lot of questions about there are certain guys in college that are dominant edge rushers, and they dominate because they're so fast they can get, they're like 230 pounds, and they can fly around the corner and get to the quarterback. And you wonder, why in the world would you not draft that guy in the first round and just thrive? Because in the pros, even the 320-pound tackles are not that slow. Everybody's a lot faster. So if you can't just run past this guy and you're way too small to go through the guy, you are now useless. That little tiny gap in speed takes you from one of the best college players to useless in the pros. Maybe we'll put you at inside linebacker or something. I don't really know what to do with you. Freaking corner, maybe. I don't know. Can you play wide receiver? Or I don't know. Same with quarterbacks, dominant quarterbacks. Justin Fields. What's the problem? The NFL game is a half step faster. And if you can't process a half a step faster to keep up with the game, you will bust out in the pros. He was an elite college football player. Not just his rushing ability, his throwing ability. That guy is a backup. I mean, he's probably going to start this year, and I hope he thrives. I hope he does really well, all that. But this is so everybody to some degree is a projection. Even production is a bit of a projection. Here was his production in college. How much of that production actually translates to the pros? But the point is, you have to take the whole package and say, what does that look like in professional football? And also with the traits, how much of it, and we all kind of know what some of these things are. Some of them, like, processing speed and whatnot, not super changeable. Even accuracy has been, I don't know if that's changed, but I know a while ago they were talking about, like, if you're an inaccurate quarterback, that's not usually something that gets coached out of you. So there has to be, he's not going to tell us what it is, but there has to be a system in which we look at it and say, okay, these are the things we think we can improve, and these are the things that probably can't improve. And so we try to, for every single prospect, not just the project, the quote-unquote projects, for every single prospect, we say, okay, let's say we can coach up these things. So we bring everybody up, even the highly productive guys. We think we can improve this, that, or the other thing. With this guy, we can improve this, not this. And then from that high point, what does that look like in the pros? And then you go from there. It's just, it's all a crapshoot, man. And I'm not trying to crap on people who are saying, I'm tired of the projects, I want a productive guy, because I do get that, and I've been saying that for years. I was saying that before it was cool. I was saying that when I started this podcast back in like 17, 18 or whatever, where it's like, I just want to get a good football player. And I do think that's a thing. I think some guys just get it. But, projection is always going to be a part of it. And it's always going to be hard to get away from guys with high ceilings. It's kind of a contradictory talking point among Packer fans, myself included, where on one hand we want productive guys and get away from projects, which projects generally mean guys with unbelievably high traits that can be, that you project that at their ceiling could be all pros. And at the same time saying, we got enough good players, we need some blue chippers. Well, if you want some blue chippers, guess what? You want guys like Shamar Stewart, guys that have that ceiling. Don't go out there and get a guy with a moderate ceiling but a high floor and then tell me we need to do a better job of getting blue chippers by drafting a guy that's never going to be a blue chip player. Follow up on that. For every player with limited production but high traits, how do you project his upside? He said, we assess where he sits on his developmental curve and whether his traits will translate to greater NFL productivity. Again, it's kind of the same answer. So the whole developmental curve, you look at it, because some of these guys, and I'm obviously not a professional at this, but when I looked at, for example, Luther Burden versus Emeka Egbuka is a much more polished receiver, in my opinion. He looks like you can put him in an NFL offense. He knows how to run the routes. Luther Burden is a little bit more backyard football-y. So when you have like a polished, ready-to-play player, you can look at that as being some upside, because not only has he proven he can do it, but he's done it at a high level. We don't know if we can make Luther Burden into that guy yet. You assume you can probably teach him how to do it or whatever. But also from a developmental curve standpoint, you look at it and say he isn't even touching his full potential, talking about Luther Burden. So on the developmental curve, in my opinion, just as an example, Luther Burden would be lower on that curve, meaning we would project that he could actually go further than Emeka Egbuka could. Although we also have a higher trust level that Egbuka can play at, can do the things that the coaches need him to do because he's demonstrating it at Ohio State. And then the second part is to assess whether the traits will translate to greater NFL productivity. So how much development do they have left? And then given their traits, so let's say I saw a video come out yesterday. I don't even know if it was meant to be positive or negative. Some people thought it was good. Most of the comments said it was trash. But they put a video out of Luther Burden. Apparently, scouts were asking for some of his practice tape because he didn't run enough routes. I went and looked at SIS. I don't know where that's coming from. Egbuka has the most routes run. Again, very well-developed football player Egbuka is already, meaning, the ceiling may be already maxed out, but he's got it all. Luther Burden was not at the top, but he was top half. If Egbuka ran 50, he ran like 40 or something. It wasn't, so I don't know where that comes from. But anyways, people are looking at it and saying his routes were trash. Now, that's sort of the next question is you look at a guy and you say, does he have the actual athleticism to take that step? And I think that's where a lot of the athleticism comes in. It's ceiling, but it's also, hey, here's what he can't do. We think we can coach him to do this, but for example, if you don't have the required agility, and like some of these guys, I'm blanking. I think some people have been talking about Trey Amos, the corner, and you could talk about other guys like the Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan, who won't run the 40 and all that. When you look at deficiencies, there might be limitations. We need you to kind of change your technique and do this and do that. But the problem is if you can't do it, if I look at you and your 3-cone is this, or your 40 is this, or GPS timing, or whatever the case may be, then you would look at it and say you don't have enough. The reason why the high RAS guys, we'll get to that in a minute, tend to do better is because they don't have limitations. Generally speaking, I mean, if you excel in speed, explosion, and agility, then we know that we can coach you up and do this, that, or the other. It doesn't mean you can do it, because a lot of it comes down to actually being a good football player, and it's a mental thing. But there are no physical limitations. And so that's where projection gets easier, and I think it becomes sort of a self-fulfilling thing, where it's like, oh, they always get high RAS guys. Well, maybe it has less to do with the fact that they like the high RAS, and maybe more to do with when they look at these guys with low agility or explosion or whatever the case may be, they may rule out the fact that this guy can do it, that we can coach him up and do those things. So this guy is either off the board or he's significantly lower on the board because we don't know if we can actually coach him up to do those things. It's a question of when scouts or evaluators disagree, how do you handle those debates? He says, through respectful, though thorough discussions over weeks. Once a decision's made, we move on without dragging out conflicts. I'd love to see some of those because I bet there's some knockdown, drag-out fights. Because if you have to implement a rule that when it's done, we don't revisit it, we move on, that's because if you don't have that rule, I mean, rules are always there for a reason. I don't have a force field around my house to protect us from dragons for a reason, because there are no dragons. I also don't know how to buy a force field. But point is, if you put those rules in place, it's because there would be a scout who would walk in every day and grumble about how it's freaking gonna let this guy walk away and it's like, no, we don't do that, Frank. He's off the board. Did you pull his name out of the garbage? Give me that. Stop taking guys' names out of the garbage, Frank. I've told you 1,000 times. But all right, it's somehow been 17 minutes already. I knew this was going to take forever. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. This class has many older multi-year college players. Do you expect depth in the rounds 6 and 7 and undrafted free agents? He said yes. NIL and extra eligibility means a deeper pool late in undrafted free agency. So if you remember last year, real lack of talent. Last year sucked for talent depth, which is tough for a team like the Packers who thrive in like rounds 4, 5, 6, 7. They tend to do well there. If you're telling me there's like 150 good players or 110 or something, that's a problem. They might get their 1 second-round gem, and then it's like, I don't know what to do. I'm kind of joking, but, kind of not. What we're seeing now is maybe so you have an effect that basically hits 1 year, and then it starts to unravel. So that first year of nobody's there is because when people are supposed to be coming out, they're like, no, I want to stay here and keep making money. But eventually, those guys have to come out. But the difference is, so now there's a big pool of guys. The only real difference is they're coming out rich and old. But the talent pool should absolutely be there. And you end up with guys that are much more talented that are probably going to be older. And I'll be interesting to see how this affects the analytics. Because guys that would have come out a long time ago are like, I'm making money, I'm staying. Maybe not a ton, but there are some. Do you need your first-round pick to make an immediate impact? He says, ideally, yes, but rookie year impact often depends on opportunity and fit more than draft status. There was an interesting point on fifth-year options. There was a question on fifth-year options, and that would impact Quay Walker and Devonte Wyatt. What he said is that we're close to that decision. We're aiming to keep both players through 2026, whether via the option or an extension. So for Quay and Wyatt, the point is they're staying. We're just trying to decide whether a fifth-year option is the best route to go or if we should just give them a new contract right away, which I like and I think makes sense. Wyatt, I think, is an underrated asset to the team. He hasn't quite hit the potential that I hope he does. And again, it's that whole stupid defensive line thing where I thought he had a decent rookie year, and then he actually went backwards in year 2 because of the stupid change and a bad coach and all that crap, where he should have taken a big step forward and hopefully would have been whatever. I don't know, but I think he's a good player. He's a solid 3-tech option, which I think is a discussion that needs to be had either today or tomorrow, ideally. Like, it needs to happen. But the question of, like, what is a good complement? Who is a good Kenny replacement to really unleash Wyatt as a pass rusher? I think that's a serious question to be asked. But also with Quay, I mean, look, he has not hit what we had wanted. He started to hit his stride, I think, with Edgerrin Cooper and maybe putting him in a role that is most beneficial to him, and I think he can hopefully continue to grow. I'm excited to see what happens with a permanent fixture of Edgerrin Cooper at linebacker next to Quay, and a full offseason for Hafley and the boys to actually see what these guys did, maybe make some tweaks where necessary, and also this is where the draft and free agency come in. Free agency was useless, but the draft comes in to say, okay, after evaluating things, here's how we're going to tweak things. Here's where I want Quay and Cooper, and here's what we can do with the safeties and this guy and that guy. But also, if we really want to get this, that, or the other, here are the pieces to really unlock this. And maybe another linebacker is part of that. I don't know. But do they deserve to stay? I think they absolutely deserve to stay. It's just, I don't think either is going to get a mega contract, nor should they. Talked about Tetero McMillan's workout. The report was that he was the only GM in attendance. He made a joke that he wasn't there. There's a lot of talk and a lot of speculation about this. The fact that he joked that he wasn't there. Somebody else pointed out that when he was asked about Cooper DeJean last year, he went on this big, long speech about how great he is and all this stuff. And as we all know, he let Cooper DeJean go right past us. When it gets to Tetero and McMillan, does he give this big, long thing about how great he is? No, he kind of brushes it off. He's like, oh, yeah, it's whatever. Kind of keeping it casual, like, oh yeah, Tetero, is it McMahon or McMillan? Oh yeah, like playing coy. It's obviously we're reading tea leaves here. We're having fun, but there is kind of that thing of like, is he trying to play it cool and play it down, like, oh, we're not interested, kind of thing. Which, by the way, is another discussion I want to have about some of the news that's been coming out. That's very different to what we've been assuming for quite a while. But he did confirm that he was there. He said he doesn't know if he was the only GM. That might not be correct. I don't know. And then the biggest question of the day, the biggest controversy of the day. Do you use RAS or other public athletic scores? No. We rely on proprietary analytics in our scouts' trait evaluations, not RAS. And of course, almost probably 90% of the comments are, yeah, right. Guys, we have to be smarter than this. First of all, I've been saying this since day one. They don't use RAS. Why would you think they use RAS? Well, because there's a correlation. Okay, does anybody know a saying about correlation? Can anyone think of one? Correlation, causation, anything about that? Does anybody, and I this is what I said a couple days ago, every fan base, when you ask them about their tendencies, will tell you, well, our team is actually really into RAS, which I don't mind that saying, because what I mean when if I say that, what I mean by that is there is a parallel, or essentially the Packers like athletic players. That doesn't mean that they're going over to RAS and going, oh, he has a 10, I'm going to draft him. Do you understand how easy it is for there to be a correlation between who the Packers pick and who has a high RAS? And do you understand that basically 32 teams have that same correlation? Because highly athletic players are the ones that tend to get drafted especially early. Most first-round picks have high RAS scores. And so the fact that the Packers are probably going to draft somebody in the 9s of RAS makes sense. And remember, they do come from a school that does really prioritize traits. So they do tend to be probably, I think there was a study done, the Packers are not the highest in terms of RAS, but they're up there somewhere. But the point is, they like traits. That doesn't mean they use RAS. It means that there is a commonality between the players that the Packers tend to like and the players that tend to score high on RAS. But you don't have to use RAS for that. You can use, for example, a stopwatch. You can use GPS times. In fact, what essentially the Packers do is a more... It's kind of like if I were to say that... and this has kind of happened, but I didn't make the ridiculous conclusion. If somebody had said, who do you think had the best day? And Matt LaFleur says, well, we went back and we watched the tape and we graded it out, and Zach Tom had the best day. And I go over to PFF, and I see that PFF gave Zach Tom the highest score. And if we did that every day, we would find that there is a general correlation between who the Packers thought did well and didn't, with some discrepancies, of course, just like RAS. There are some lower RAS guys that the Packers pick, even relatively early. But there would be some general correlation between high PFF grades and low PFF grades and the Packers' high grades and the Packers' low grades. That doesn't mean they're using PFF. It means that the two metrics are doing the same thing when PFF grades them and when the Packers grade them. The only difference is that the Packers are using a better system. The Packers have not only a proprietary and better system, and they have more qualified people doing it, but they also understand what the play designs were. They know what they were supposed to do. That's one of the critiques of PFF. Well, it's stupid because you don't know what the designs were. Fine, but it's as good as anybody else has. What am I supposed to do? Go watch it myself? What do I know the design? How am I supposed to know? I don't know any better than PFF does. So yes, the Packers have an analytics staff that could not give two craps about RAS. RAS is nonsense to these people. Do you understand how in-depth and crazy the metrics and the systems they have? Even, by the way, PFF, which does work with all 32 teams, they provide teams with data that we can't even access. It's way more in-depth than the stuff that we can even access. So everything teams have is way more intricate. They have film cut-ups that are significantly better than anything I have. They have a system where they can pull up any play from any... So I want to see, like what I was doing. I want to see Jaden Higgins in man coverage or whatever. They can pull up every single snap of him in man coverage. Even press man coverage, they can pull all that up. And they can have the GPS times and all this stuff with it. And so when the analytics staff get together, they'll go super in depth about the GPS, the miles per hour when running all these different routes, and they'll crunch all these things and they'll run their analytics. And the idea that they're just blindly going, 40 time and the 3 cone and the vert, 9.2 RAS, that's the whole thing. First of all, Gutekunst, this is like a secondary, tertiary thing. And I'm sure that he hates the analytics staff because the film people, like the scouts, don't like the analytics people. But like the analytics people come out and they're like, oh yeah, we give him a 2.743 in our ZRCX4 Packers proprietary. Okay, fine, great. Thank you, Zoltan. Thank you for your update. So not only does Gutekunst not use RAS, they have much more specific things, but they have a specific group of people whose entire job is to build their own metrics, which are based on way more advanced things. And then I don't even know how much Gutekunst puts into what they say. It might be a little tiny thing about, we watch the film and I want a question about this, and then I'll go ask Zoltan over here, like, hey, what did you find about this guy running this? He felt a little bit like this, and we'll talk a little bit, and then it's okay. Go back in your dungeon and don't ever talk to me. You stink. Take a shower. The fact that so many people are in the comment section go, oh yeah, right, because I looked at it and there's a lot of 9s. Packers pick a lot of 9s, so I know. Guys, please. You're freaking embarrassing all of us. Get out of the comments section. Delete your accounts. He doesn't use RAS. Why would he use RAS? Why? I don't even like to use RAS. I've been using the NFL IQ thing, where it shows miles per hour in different routes and all. This is significantly better than all this stuff. RAS is fine. It's a tiny little metric. But if you think the Packers would do anything different if RAS went the way of Spark and just disappeared, you're out of your mind. The Packers wouldn't even notice, and they would still keep drafting the same types of players. Big, tall, fast guys. Because that's what they like. Not because RAS told them to. He did talk about the players refusing to do tests, and Gutekunst mentioned, it does make things difficult, and he doesn't think it's good for the players, and that's very obviously true. I mean, I understand if you know you're going to suck at it by not doing it, but this is a whole part of their process, is trying to decide whether or not you can do stuff, and if you don't run the things and if you don't do the tests, that's not great. And it's not all athletic testing. I mean, I forgot who it was, but somebody had brought up on Packernet After Dark the what do you call it? Intelligence test, whatever that thing's called. Bob McGinn had recently done a podcast where they were talking about stuff, and one of the things they brought up is maybe 55-60% of the guys will even do that test anymore. A lot of these guys are just refusing to do it. Well, okay, that's fine, but these guys are sometimes going to have to make a decision, and when it comes down to, do I pick this guy or that guy, the more unknowns that you provide to them, the more likely they are to go in another direction. Says they don't have GPS data on every prospect, but most schools provide it to them, especially the bigger schools. How important is it for a player to love football? He says it's critical. NFL life is hard. Passion drives resilience through adversity and involving priorities. So one of those things that I've learned over time how important that is. The difference between the guy that lives, eats, sleeps football and wants to be great and strives for greatness 24/7, and if you clone that person and make him the guy that goes and does the required things. He'll go to all the meetings, and he'll go do the required workouts, and he'll eat whatever food they tell him to eat. And then when he leaves the building, he goes back and smokes pot and plays video games. One of those guys has a real chance of getting a next big contract, and the other guy is not going to see his potential. And if you don't love football, in fact, if you kind of dislike football, but it's something, obviously I can't pass it up because I get paid millions of dollars to do it, it's very hard to dedicate so much of your time, especially when you're already rich and you don't have to do anything outside of the requirements. So I can go back. I got all this money. I can invite all my friends over. We can have a party. We can do whatever. I could friggin' do steaks and lobster and hang out and watch movies and what. Like, I don't have to do anything else to forego that and forego all the pleasures that come along with all that money and say, instead of going home and enjoying my life, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to put in more work and I'm going to sit at home and I'm going to study film instead of watching movies. It's a choice that you have to make independently by yourself at, 23 years old being a millionaire. How many of us at 23 years old make a good decision in that spot? Finally, how do you define a successful draft weekend? He says, bringing in players who fit our culture and immediately contribute to our team's success. All right, let's run through some other news. Former 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick's wife says the quarterback is still training daily and waiting for NFL teams to call.
What a loser! What a loser here.
What else we got here? I hate to do that. We don't have enough time for this for me to get all ranty, but let me just real quick double back to the RAS thing because this popped up. Ken Ingalls went on a similar rant to what I just did. Let me just read what he said. And more importantly, I want to get to the comments because it just so at least you can see where I'm coming from with this annoyance. I'll tone down the language a bit, but here's what Ken Ingalls said. Brian Gutekunst doesn't use RAS. No kidding. The top college athletes tend to be drafted before the average and bad ones. No kidding. The Packers use their own and more detailed athletic trait modeling than RAS provides. No kidding. Packers Twitter will continue to tie Packers to RAS because A, they will never know what goes into Packers model. B, RAS is free, visually appealing, and idiot-proof to understand. It's color-coded in a 0 to 10 scale. And C, RAS provides a good enough correlation. No kidding. Darren says, or C, they use the same metrics, value the same, call it something different, and still draft measurables over production, fundamentals, and continue to get burned for it. This is the absolute brain rot of the anti-Gutekunst people on social media. They use the same metrics. No, they don't. They use more advanced metrics. They value them the same. What do you mean the same? The same as what? RAS? Do you understand what RAS is? It's a very simple thing. Relative athletic score. It's simply saying, how fast are you relative to your size, relative to everybody else that ran it. It's a simple tool. It's not an all-encompassing tool. It's just a simple tool to help you understand how fast a guy is at that position, at that size. It's a simple tool for us fans to use. That's very nice. What do you mean value them the same? It's not even an all-encompassing metric. It would be one tool that you would put in your toolbox that you could use along with a bunch of others to determine athleticism from a lot of different ways and a lot of different angles. Call it something different. They probably don't even have necessarily a name for their one metric because they don't have one metric. And still draft measurables over production. Prove it. Prove it. Who's measurables over production? Is this just about Rashawn Gary? Is that what it is? He had 4 sacks in his final year where he played about a half a year. Is that what's bothering you? 14% and 4 sacks in a half a year. The year prior, he had 14% and 7 sacks in 362 attempts. Is that it? Is that really what bothers you? 72 pass rush grade. Is it Christian Watson? 800 yards, 7 touchdowns, 90 receiving grade. He didn't crack 1,000, so I guess it's the production problem, despite the fact that NDSU runs the ball like 99% of the time. But, we don't need context. We just need to see somebody with a high RAS score and then see that we didn't win a Super Bowl and then start convulsing like a psychopath. Jaden Reed had 1,026 yards and 10 touchdowns, but he's also fast, so there's no production there, stupid idiot. And the thing that I always ask is, who do you want? And they never have an answer. Somebody else says, carrying the water for Gut again, I see. Oh, that's a brilliant, brilliant retort. Whether they use RAS or not is irrelevant. Gut clearly overvalues raw athleticism when grading players, and it rarely ever, if ever, pans out. Based on what? This is exactly what I was talking about. People pop up a conclusion in their head. They don't ask questions and then go investigate. They just start from the conclusion and say, this is it. He clearly overvalues raw athleticism. Based on what? It rarely, if ever, pans out. Based on what? Based on what? What are you basing this on? What have you looked into? Because I can tell you what is required if you want to actually get the answer to this question. If you're going to actually convince me of this, I can tell you what you're going to have to do in order to get the actual answer to present to me to convince me. And I promise you 0 people in the comment section have actually done this. What the people in the comment section have done is they've noticed that the Packers draft high RAS players, and they're mad at when some of them don't pan out. They pretend that none of them pan out because Gutekunst is obsessed with fast guys that suck at football. This is a fake narrative that has just been entirely made up. How many guys that we've drafted with low RAS scores have panned out? Do you know? You know who immediately comes to mind as a guy that kind of breaks that trend of being the high RAS guy, but somebody that he wanted to be a Packer. He's a hard worker. He's a really good football player. You know who that was? It was Amari Rodgers. How did that pick pan out for you? No, not every high RAS player works out. I'm so sorry to tell you that if you change strategies and focus on production, guess what? A lot of those guys aren't going to pan out either. Because you know what? Most guys don't pan out in the draft, period. I don't care what strategy you use. This idea that I'm not satisfied, so I'm going to find out what they tend to do. I'm going to find a pattern, and then I'm going to say that pattern is the problem, and we need to do the opposite of that pattern. If that's as deep as you can think, you're not a thinker. I'm so sorry that some work is required to actually draw conclusions. I'm so sorry to tell you that you're going to actually have to look at probably go back to the beginning of when Brian Gutekunst started drafting. You're going to have to collect every single draft pick. I can give you links. I'm looking at one of the things right now. You can go over to Pro Football Reference. It'll give you a list of every single pick that was made. You grab those guys, throw it in an Excel sheet, delete all the stuff you don't need or whatever, but you got their names, their pick number, their position, all that stuff right there, the year that it was done. Then you got to go over to RAS. You're probably going to have to manually input this. It's probably going to be faster than finding some other kind of way to do it. So you manually input every single one. Here's where it gets tricky. You're going to have to find out how that compares to all the rest. This might be where it's in your best interest to actually go all the way back to 2018 and every draft pick. See if you can find a database of RAS, because I want to know every pick from 2018. I want to know every single RAS score, and then I want to find out where the Packers rank in terms of how high the RAS is. Again, we're not saying RAS is directly used by Gutekunst. We're saying that there's a correlation. What we're using is RAS as a form of athleticism to say how much more athleticism do the Packers tend to go after than other teams. So we have to set the baseline. First of all, do they even do this? Then we need to find out if there's less success. I need to find this correlation. I need you to show me in the data where there are guys that are high athleticism and low production. Unfortunately, here's where it's also going to get hard. You're going to have to define low production. You're going to have to define low production for every single position, and then you're going to have to find out how. Honestly, if you want to do this the best, you're going to have to find like the gap in production. So if this is the baseline 0 of production of expectation, not only were you above or below it, but how much so? And then you find the athleticism, and you get a baseline athleticism, and you say how much above or below, and we try to chart that out. So his athleticism is the gap or the R, whatever thing, mathematical term we're using here, to the not order of magnitude, but you know what I mean? The standard deviation is what I'm looking for away from center here, above the standard RAS for this pick, right? Because we're comparing it to other teams. We're not saying, well, his RAS is a 9, and that's so much above a 5. No, because nobody drafts a 5 in the first round at pick 23, you moron. If the standard there is a 9, and we draft a 9.2, the standard deviation is not that much higher, but then you look at how much lower in production do we draft than everybody else, and then look at how much worse those produce than everybody else's picks at pick 23 and that kind of thing. That's the way you're going to have to do this. It's going to take you a very long time to compile all that information, but when you do compile all that, I look forward to hearing from you and finding out exactly what you've discovered, and unless and until you're willing to do something even close to that, I don't want to hear you speak about this conclusion that you have, that you made up, because people that start with conclusions and work backwards drive me frickin' crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. You're making stuff up. Okay, I think we got it. Other news and notes. I brought this guy up before, and the entire thing centered around, I don't know who this is or why we would believe they're some kind of a major insider, but this is inside information, so I'll read it and then just tell you to, I guess, be skeptical. Mr. Jaire Wolfel, who is editor of WolfelSportsBox.com, Pro Basketball Writers Association award winner, WNA, whatever that is, Women's National Association, I don't know, award winner, I don't know why you would win a women's award, Writing National Achievement, PBA award winner, Lindy's Pro Basketball Magazine. Okay. Apparently, this is a guy who has nothing to do with football or the Packers that has a bunch of Packers insights. He says the Packers are doing their due diligence and exploring ways to move up in the draft. Sources said one player the Packers are eyeing, if moving up, is Michigan cornerback Will Johnson. Johnson isn't expected to fall past 15th pick. Green Bay currently has the 23rd pick. Do with that what you will. I don't know. I went back through his timeline to see if there's anything here where he's made predictions that either came true or didn't. All of the things I saw were kind of recent, although, how long am I going to sit here and scroll? Some other stuff he had to say. Former Packers cornerback Rasul Douglas remains available in free agency. I'm hearing he's receptive about returning to Green Bay. Douglas had 2+ nice seasons with the Packers before being dealt to the Bills midway through the 23 season. Douglas 30 is coming off a productive season in Buffalo. He didn't say the Packers are interested. He didn't say it was about to happen. I'm skeptical he wanted to come back, but, whatever. There's that. There's been plenty of buzz about how the Packers GM Brian Gutekunst was the only GM in attendance to Tetero McMillan, the former Arizona standout receiver. One problem. Quote, "That's not at all true," insisted a person involved in the workout. I don't know how that story got started, but there were several GMs at it. Whatever the number of GMs to attend the workout, the fact that Gutekunst was in attendance is clear indicator of the Packers' interest in McMillan. So, kind of an interesting note, because that's pretty much what Gutekunst said. It's almost like he asked Gutekunst directly. Different things like that. So I don't know. I don't know who this person is. If you know who this person is, please call in and tell me. I don't know who they are. But according to this, they're I shouldn't say targeting. They're looking at Will. Now, if the first part of this was the only thing, is they're doing their due diligence, exploring ways to move up, that's kind of a nothing thing, because they're always doing war room stuff. They're always looking at moving up, moving back, all these things. But to say that they're specifically looking at Will Johnson, we'll see. We'll see how that all pans out. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and get through the rest of these news and notes, and we'll get up out of here. I try not to crap on too many people, although I'm not very good at it, but I just got ESPN Milwaukee. I don't really listen to their programming, mostly because they do like hour-long, 2-hour, 3-hour. So I don't have the time to dedicate to it. I will copy and paste the transcripts into AI and see if there's anything interesting there, which we're going to get to in a minute. But some of the stuff they put out, I don't know if it's meant to be clickbait or if they just should not be doing this. Just in case you saw it and think that it's a possibility. So first of all, there have been rumors now. And let's start with this. There's a lot of rumors coming out that directly conflict with everything we've been hearing recently. One of them is the Browns and Giants are fielding calls about possibly moving back. We have been hearing Travis Hunter and then Abdul Carter. Of course, now recently, maybe Abdul Carter at 2. You never know. And it's like, okay, maybe. Now they're possibly trading out, right? Now they're taking the calls. They're interested. They're thinking about it. There's a lot of stuff going on. We'll get to a couple more where it's like, this is flying directly in the face of what we've been hearing was pretty well locked up. And I can't tell if it's disinformation. All right, let's do one specifically here. The Jacksonville Jaguars now, a lot of talk about they're not taking that defensive tackle. They're expected to do something crazy, and that's going to throw off the whole draft. I don't know if it's because we're getting closer and stuff is starting to leak or whatever that we're starting to get some really good last-minute information, or if this is prime disinformation time, where teams are starting to pump out this sort of I don't really want them attitude because they're scared that someone's going to jump up and take our defensive tackle, right? Stuff like that. I don't really know. Anyways, there's talk about, via Adam Schefter, Browns and Giants are fielding trade calls for picks number 2 and 3 per ESPN's Peter Schrager. ESPN Milwaukee says, picks 23, 54, and a 2026 first for Travis Hunter. Are you in? The hell are you talking about? In what frickin' universe can we give up 2 first-round picks and a second and move up to pick 2 and get Travis Hunter? Have you ever seen a trade package into the top 3 in your life? Have you seen the haul that like the Bears got to move out of those spots? I quote tweeted this with just one example. Okay? 49ers gave 3 first-round picks, including the number 12 overall pick. We have 23. So 12 and 2 future first-round picks plus a next year's third-round pick to move up to 3. So if you're at 12 and you want to get to 3, you got to give up 3 first-round picks and a third. We're going to give up 2 firsts, one of them being a 23 and a second, and you think that gets us to 2? We're giving up we're giving up this year and the next 3 first-round picks plus probably more. Because I don't think you can give up more than 3. Maybe it's the next 2. I don't know if you can give up more than 3 total or 3 future. I can't remember. We're easily giving up 3 first-round picks. We're easily giving up this year's second and probably more if you want to go from 23 to 2. And the answer is absolutely not would I give all that up for Travis Hunter or anybody on planet Earth. What an insane thing we're talking about. I saw that and I'm like, what? In what world am I going to trade up into the top 3 from outside of the 20s with a couple firsts and a second? Who told you that was a possibility? Just crazy. All right, what else we got here? ESPN Milwaukee. They had Rob Demovsky on. Some of the bullet point notes that he provided to ESPN Milwaukee. The organization is frustrated over uncertainty of Alexander's availability. He wastes not only a roster spot, but practice reps and cap dollars. Packers would welcome him back only with a guarantee of playing 12 to 13 games to justify that level of investment. From Alexander's perspective, the camp has refused any pay cut. No offer has been made, and if there was, he wouldn't accept one. We've already heard that before. We've heard all that before. He is apparently aware that he'll lose money if he is cut or traded, and is frustrated by the front office's, quote, "we want something for him" stance. There is limited trade market interest. Some teams have inquired, many have not. He says that holding through the draft could tempt some late-night suitors who miss on other corners or edge targets, so that's kind of one of the upcoming timelines or interesting little things where teams that are like, I don't think I want Jaire, might not come away with what they're hoping for and might be interested. Says, if he is still on the roster by Monday post-draft, Packers must resolve, trade or release, to clear roster before offseason obligations. So I don't know specifically what all the different timelines are. Obviously, June 1st is a known date. But the bottom line is, there's sort of an expectation of something getting done hopefully relatively soon during or after the draft, if the thought process, I guess, is that, teams are now needy or desperate for something. And if that doesn't happen, then you start to wonder if this thing might just end up being a cut. But I know, I believe somewhere in here, Demovsky also mentioned there's like a 95% chance he's gone or something to that effect. As for the question of could he still possibly stay, which kind of seems to be the case for me as well, I think the team and Jaire are both very much wanting to separate. It's kind of like when a husband and wife kind of hate each other and both of them are seeking a divorce, and somebody's like, yeah, but, I mean, have you considered it would be better for the kids? Yeah, I think everyone's aware of that. That's it's true, but I think it's probably still going to happen, though. It's just my hunch. We also talked a little bit about the schedule, by the way. The official off-season program technically did start, yesterday for me, this past Monday. All players begin virtual meetings, strength and conditioning, physical rehab, rookie mini camp, either May 2nd through 4th or May 9th through 11th. The date has not yet been officially announced, but right around the corner. And then you got on-field Phase 1 walkthroughs and indie drills starting May 27th through the 30th and June 2nd through the 5th. Mandatory minicamp then June 10th through the 12th. Other newsy things here. So, again, Jacksonville Jaguars potentially surprised with their number 1 pick. They're not expected to take Mason Graham, according to Rich Eisen. So not only is it they might not, they're not expected to, according to some people. Potential surprise picks. Ashton Jeanty has been talked about a ton. So it was the Bears. That was like a lock. And then it was like, actually, the Raiders are pretty much a lock. And now it's the Jaguars really seriously could be taking him. There's also talk about Jalen Walker, which would make sense, or super surprise pick, which would, I think, just be the dumbest thing on planet Earth, Derek Harmon, which when I see stuff like that is like, you're just freaking lying. Like, this whole thing is just stupid. You're just being stupid. Also, a ton of talk about Shedeur Sanders. You got some people really trying to push that he's going to go to the Saints, and then it's just like, no, that's just not going to happen. There's also, right now, a question of, is he even a first-round pick? Could he fall out of the first? But then there's also talk about Shaw and Dart possibly being first-round picks. So there's a question of who even is QB2 anymore, which is funny because Shedeur Sanders was like a lock top 3 pick for a while, or at least top 5. Now we don't know if he's a first-round pick. We don't even know if he's the second-best quarterback in this. He might end up going after Dart and Shaw for all we know. But I guess there's been multiple reports that some teams do not have a first-round grade on Shedeur Sanders. It really just matters, which teams those are, I guess. Mike McCarthy is going to be joining Pat McAfee for the draft. So if you're kind of bouncing around between shows, obviously you're going to have some pretty good options out there, but that's one to possibly tune into. Got a huge list of stuff here. The Steelers will not draft Jalen Milroe in the first 3 rounds, Mike DeFabo of The Athletic says. Sources believe Jalen Walker to the Panthers is a lock. That obviously assumes he's there, but that's been kind of locked up for a while now. The Giants apparently have, this is what Schefter said, GM Joe Schoen has lived in Boulder, but there might not be consensus within the building to draft Shedeur Sanders. The Giants have conducted countless meetings and workouts with Sanders, but they aren't sold enough on him to draft him at 3, obviously. They could trade up from number 34, but it doesn't sound like they're enthusiastic about doing so. So 3's out of the question, but again, this is that whole thing of like, who's going to draft this guy? It's like, well, he's going to go to the Giants, and then the Giants are like, yeah, no, I think we'll go in a different direction. And then it's like, well, now Derek Carr starts going to be the Saints, and the Saints are like, yeah, we're not doing that. It's like, okay, it's going to be the Steelers. And then a report comes out that they had a meeting and it really did not go very well. It's like, okay, well, the Giants will trade up into the first round because they still really want a quarterback, and it might not be a good value at 3, but certainly by the second round, with their second round pick, even if they have to trade up, they would do that, right? And it's like, yeah, we'll see. We're not super sold on them. And then you get notes like this via Adam Schefter. The Saints are hot and heavy on Jackson Dart. Multiple personnel people believe the Bears are praying that Ashton Jeanty will fall to them at 10 via Adam Schefter, which is hilarious. Not impossible. It's probably as likely as Tetero McMillan falling to us. But apparently not only do you have to dodge the Jaguars and the Raiders, but now there's talk that the Broncos are heavily inquiring about trading up, and they're looking at Ashton Jeanty. So I don't think the Bears are getting him without a move up. And what would really be funny to me is if all this nonsense is a ploy by, for example, the either the Jaguars who maybe want to move down, or the Raiders and Jaguars are working together to try to work out a trade to see if they can get the Bears to trade up for a freaking running back or something. Because what could be better for the Raiders, for example, than to have the team in front of you take a running back so that you can have somebody like Mason Graham fall into your lap. The Jets quietly had Tyler Warren in for a visit, and certain members in the building are enamored with him via Adam Schefter. By the way, Adam Schefter pumping out a ton of stuff this early. This is even making me think even more that a lot of this is fake. I think Adam Schefter is a tool. And I don't necessarily mean that in the super offensive way, although a little bit I do. I think he is like the number one go-to if you want a guy that's willing to be used by the media so that he can feel important, but also he's willing to push out nonsense. Adam Schefter has put out nothing. And then in the last 24 to 48 hours, there have been 700 different notes, every single one of them from Adam Schefter, and every single one of them is saying, guess what, everything you've been told is a lie. Suddenly the Saints really want Jackson Dart. Suddenly the Broncos want Ashton Genty. Suddenly the Giants want Tyler Warren. Where did all this come from? Every single note has come from Adam Schefter. Why all of a sudden is he just breaking all this massive news? Because all these teams are wanting to push out misinformation, and who do they go to? Adam Schefter. Because that dude doesn't care about anything other than being able to be the scoop guy. I got it on good authority. I talked to a GM. Cool, bro, but is it true? Who cares? You get to sound important. And they get to push out lies and make you look like an idiot. I don't know, some of it might be true, but this is unbelievably fishy. Almost every note that I've talked about so far today on this site has been Schefter, who has talked about almost nothing up to this point. The Lions have been doing their homework on Maxwell Hairston. That's via Dane Brugler of The Athletic. Detroit just drafted a cornerback. Defensive end seems more likely, but Hairston is definitely a possibility at number 28. Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network says Ashton Genty feels like Jacksonville to me. I don't know if he's getting... Again, like, is this real, or is this just getting pushed out everywhere? I don't know. It's gonna be an interesting question to be answered when the time comes. The Jaguars are deciding between Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, and Ashton Genty via Charlie Campbell of Walter Football. Genty would arguably be the best player of the bunch, but the question is if the Jaguars want to use a 5th overall pick on a running back. Colts really like Tyler Booker, but positional value will lead them to look elsewhere. That's Charlie Campbell. Probably for the best, the Colts could obtain a solid guard on day 2. Don't be surprised if the Redskins go receiver in the first round. That's, again, Charlie Campbell. I think we've kind of been on that for a while. It's, quote-unquote, safe to say the Saints won't draft Shedeur Sanders. That's Jeff Duncan of NOLA.com. That's New Orleans, Louisiana. It sounds like the Saints like Jackson Dart more than Sanders anyway. They're expected to target Dart with their second pick in the 25 draft. This is why it's like, where is Shedeur going to go? And I really do think not only are there questions about his play, but like, unless you're a superstar, I don't think you can act the way you act. Nobody wants to deal with a superstar that's not good enough to be acting like a superstar. You can only act that way when you're, getting that third massive contract or the highest paid quarterback in football. And then you can kind of be a little bit of a douche. Until then, you're supposed to be humble. I don't know if maybe nobody told you that. Brian Daboll is high on Jackson Dart. That's the Giants. That's via Connor Hughes, who is a Giants guy. The follow-up, is anyone high on Shedeur Sanders? Either way, the Giants and Saints could fight for Dart at the end of Thursday night or the beginning of Friday. Again, he might go to the Steelers. Somebody might come up for him. He might, whatever, we'll see. But all the news lately has been like, it's not great. It's really not super great, all this news here about Shedeur Sanders. Some other Pauline note here. The 49ers are very high on Oluwafemi Oladejo, for those wondering. Raiders are happy with interior offensive line. That's great. And then, could there be major surprises in the top 5 picks? In my Notes and Rumors article from last week, I mentioned a word circulating in the league that the Patriots could pull a surprise and take an edge rusher with the 4th pick of the draft. That's very different. I actually just saw recently somebody said that the first 4 are locked. After that, it's surprise time. Well, Pauline's now saying, keep an eye on 4. On Monday, separate sources confirmed this and mentioned Jalen Walker as a potential Patriots choice, which is the second time I heard that name coupled with New England. That would throw a curveball at the top of the draft, but it makes sense considering the franchise is now being led by Mike Vrabel, a defensive-minded head coach. Again, if I had to guess, I would lean toward this not being the case, but it's going to make the draft more exciting. Just the fact that I'm not sure. But a lot of times, when this ends up happening, You come in and go, oh, I wonder if the crazy thing happens, and the crazy thing doesn't happen. And it's like, oh, I wonder, and then it's like, nope, that's kind of the boring thing. It's usually how these go. We'll see. Later Monday, I confirmed that the Patriots had a decent-sized contingent in attendance at last Thursday's workout in Georgia, which featured Walker and Mykel Williams. They later took Walker out for lunch. The other surprise in the first handful of picks is Ashton Jeanty being selected by the Jacksonville Jaguars with the 5th selection, something that seems like a distinct possibility at this point. I heard this last rumor last week as well, but I felt it was a little absurd and dismissed it. There are several reasons Jacksonville is said to be considering Jeanty with the selection, including that no other player available at 5 possesses elite skills and traits Jeanty does. In other words, he's the best player available. Funny enough, I've been talking about, like, oh, why does everybody else get a pass about, GM and all this stuff, and Gutekunst doesn't? Apparently, over the past week, the San Francisco 49ers general manager John Lynch has been telling people outside the organization the team needs to hit on its draft this year. Why? Dude knows he's about to be fired, that's why. Anyways, I'm going to leave you all with that. Tomorrow is our last time doing a mock draft before the draft. So we'll have the podcast on draft morning. I'm not exactly sure. If you guys have ideas of what to do, let me know. But otherwise, we will just take it as it comes, and we'll just try to make sure final preparations for the draft are ready to rock and roll. And then after that, it's going to be talking about the Packers' new pick, assuming there is one, and how all that pans out. But I might actually do even like a live kind of reaction thing, kind of like during the draft. I've done, or during games, I've done that before. It won't be like a full, like everything, but as the picks come in, I'll do commentary and whatnot, and maybe go live on the podcast during the pick kind of thing. We'll see. Anywho, have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.